as we liked and see if those changed at all. I hear us on the.
It's going now.
Okay.
We're live?
Kyle Pitts,
All right.
Scorch.
I think we're back here.
Hey,
Let's see. Okay. All right. We are back. Sorry about that, guys. We had some technical difficulties from the top. We are here, fresh off of the Dog Bowl drafts last night here with Underdog's Hayden Winks, John Warner from the Badge Pros. We're going to do a quick rundown of the drafts, let you guys in on that so we can all sweat these together. Instead of doing a screen share, just thought it would be easier to pin the boards in the comments. So you'll see the top comment there will take you to an Underdog tweet, has all three draft boards. But how we feeling after those drafts last night, guys?
no voice for me, but other than that, feeling fine.
Yeah.
Likewise. Pretty excited, though. I mean, what took place last night, just like tip of the iceberg for what's to come in the future. And that's really exciting because last night was incredible. So really looking forward to the sweat today and seeing how people react in real time to their teams and stuff.
Yeah, my sweat's already over. The drafts were complete. No technical issues during the draft, so my sweat is officially over. So that's all of you guys.
I would say the biggest thing that jumped out to me in those drafts last night, or I guess two things. It was the onesies getting pushed up and trying to get that safety and that projection, not taking too many flyers. And in general, the players who projected the best got drafted earliest, which sounds like it should always happen, but that's not necessarily the case.
Yeah, I didn't notice basically any quarterbacks that scrolled down. Everyone stayed super safe at quarterback, and there's a couple random tight ends and wide receivers, and maybe a running back or two. But basically, the quarterback position, everybody was like staying still held true with that. And then the running backs I thought projected better that were sitting low in the ADP, like the Zach Moss, Kyron guys, like those guys ADP in the 20s, and they sold in like round one for a lot of the drafts. So I thought that was sharp.
Devin, dare I say it, Nez was right?
Yeah.
I mean, do we give him that? He
Well,
said
there's
the
two of
onesies
them.
were pushing up. He
Yeah.
said Josh Allen would go in like the front end of the draft boards. He went at 3 2 times, or 3 at one time and 5 at another time. There, I think it was a call your shot kind of evening though.
Yeah.
Like I thought people would be apprehensive to scroll down in like the 4th, 5th round and stuff. And we were seeing like Keaton Mitchell go in 2 drafts, Jonathan Mingo's going 2 drafts, JSN go in a draft, like Geno Smith, you don't even know if he's going to go yet. He goes in a draft there. So I think people were less risk adverse in the first 3 rounds, but then they were still willing to take a little bit of that risk and uniqueness on the back end of draft boards, which kind of shocked me.
Yeah, I also noticed teams were kind of staying in their lane. Like obviously the stacks were like kind of lining up, kind of how like we see it with NFL playoff best ball. So almost every single team had some quarterback to something stack. There's only a couple teams where there was no even game stack involved, but like some of those teams that you said at the top, Pete, that they just were the best projected plays. And I think on a 36-person slate, it's way easier just to go live right with the projection and just see if you can hit it like that.
Yeah, that's a good point too. So I remember I was talking to Copper Prices in draft number 2. He started Stephon Diggs, Michael Pittman, grabbed David Montgomery, then Cortland Sutton and Kyle Pitts. I think he was thinking Gardner Minshew was going to come back to him, and someone took Gardner Minshew unsnapped. Yeah. And so then he was left with the decision. I was teasing to take Ritter to stack at Pitt. He ends up taking Joshua Dobbs, who actually is a pretty nice value.
Yeah, it's a great projection there.
Yeah. And so that dynamic, I will say outside of like that, were there any instances where people were like really shaking their fists? I just got brutally sniped on a guy.
There was one, DJ Moore went 7th overall in one of the drafts, and then I'm assuming that he was hoping that Justin Fields was going to get picked, but then Nez takes Fields to stack him up with Amon Ra. So I thought DJ Moore went a little early on this one and didn't get to Fields, but I'm not sure if that was realistic or not.
The other one was the Justin Herbert one.
Oh, the W.
Yeah, someone set up Justin Herbert back stack, and the other side of the board was waiting for it. I think it was Dave. And Dave had set up an Eckler plus Keenan, and someone took Herbert on the far side of the board. Yeah. And then I think backstacked with Everett, or maybe just ran.
I think Sutton, maybe?
Sutton, game environment play.
Yeah, Sutton and Everett.
And
Everett.
Oh, wow.
Okay, yeah. So Sobey took that side of the board. Sobey was one of the craziest picks of the night, but one of the best on brand ones with the Odell Beckham pick, playing homage to the fact that he sold a CryptoPunk to Odell Beckham.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, I didn't know that.
It's great. Yeah. So he went full bid equity in the most important draft of his life.
That's incredible. And also, just in case you guys didn't hear, the logistics of how they did these drafts was people were sequestered, so they couldn't see the other drafts. Trust me, Redmond was, just had those guys.
When you see Redmond in the room, you're gonna stay on target.
You're gonna stay sequestered.
Exactly. And then, but it provided a huge advantage for guys like EDN, Copper, Crutches, who got to see a second draft board. And like Copper was in the first draft, and then was like, okay, well, I'm going to kind of change my strategy. Ends up, punting QB in the first one, and then takes Josh Allen. So you got to kind of play it both ways. Presented a lot of advantages for those guys, because otherwise there were some weird quirks. Like if you told the other two drafts, hey, Justin Fields just went 5 overall, that probably would have planted a different seed in everyone's head.
Yeah, definitely true.
I think can we talk about 2 specific examples that I thought were like the craziest plays of the night?
Yeah.
Not craziest, but just like caught me off guard. Was the 101 in the last draft was Joka. And he had CMC, and he had Kittle and Brock Purdy fall back to him, and he passed on it, Laporta Fields instead.
Yeah.
And like right or wrong or whatever, I was like, oh, this is lining up for him. This is lining up for him. And then he goes, boom, other direction on me. And then the other one was 2 guns in the first draft, I believe.
Yep.
He sets up double Minnesota with the first 2 picks there.
Wild.
And you're like, he's just going to go Joshua Dobbs on the back end and choo-choo. He backstacks with Nico Collins and CJ Stroud instead of putting Joshua Dobbs with that. So love to pick his brain. I mean, who am I to question the man who has won so much on Redacted this season? But I was like, whoa, that just seemed like a screaming Joshua Dobbs spot for me.
Yeah. That was a weird one. And then you mentioned that when Joka took Fields and Laporta, that then pushed George Kittle all the way to Crutches at pick 30. So he was able to start in one of his drafts, Diggs, Mahomes, Kittle. Probably the nicest restart you can pick off.
Dare we say GM?
Yeah, he could have
dare we say?
Yeah. And what was fun about that, I think he went pretty good, like projectable touches after there, gives Wilson, and then he does go ahead and get a stacking partner with Jerick McKinnon. I believe the only Jerick McKinnon pick.
Yeah, I think there was 2 CHs, 1 McKinnon, but all of them were in the last round, or right there in the last round. I thought the CH stuff was decently sharp, just if he gets the rushing touchdown, but chops off some of the Kelsey and Mahomes teams up top, and Rashee Rice as well. But I thought, like you said, a couple scroll downs, nothing too egregious. And then I thought people didn't stay with the ADPs. They already had their own projections, rankings, and they stuck to those up top. So they basically threw the ADP out the window, which I think, at least for like BBM, people stay really close to ADP, but now when you have all these qualifiers in there, they're going to kind of stick to their own guns, assuming that everybody else in the lobby is also going to be doing that.
The other GM start, GME holder in the 3rd draft. First of all, GME holder rocking sunglasses inside through the whole draft, wearing a Miami, polo shirt there, just giving off all kinds of vibes. And boy, were the vibes with him, because he got a Travis Kelce at 8. Patrick Mahomes at 17 start.
Yeah.
People GM that in the battle royales with 6-person. He got that in a 12-person draft.
Yeah, incredible.
That was probably the best, most shocking 1-2 of the night for me. I always like the CMC teams always project so well. I thought that was like the clear advantage at the 101. But aside from that, I thought getting Kelsey Mahomes was like very clearly. How did he finish that draft?
He went Montgomery,
Nice.
then 3 wide receivers: Sutton, Drake London, JSN.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah, I think that's a very unique team. I believe that was the only JSN team.
There was one other one.
One other one.
With a Keaton
Interesting.
Mitchell. With,
In another thing, I think noticing the differences in this contest, I would say if you were just in a typical 12-person draft or even one of these qualifiers and someone got that start, they're almost for sure adding the James Cook. They're reaching to grab the Rashee Rice for the double.
Right.
Or just, hey, I'm going to build out this game stack. In a 36-person tournament, they said, hey, I'm going to take these stack points and I'm just slamming projection everywhere else.
Yeah, very interesting.
In this draft, I hadn't given a long look at Radthad from the 1. I feel like this would have been like my almost preferred type of way to attack this, where he goes CMC Bijan. You get 2 of the best plays on the slate. You grab Devontae Adams. So now again, just trying to round in projection, and then does the backdoor stack. Jake Browning, T. Higgins, Tanner Hudson. And basically saying, I'm going to jam in the points, and then I'm going to play this game environment. If this stack hits, like I'm winning this tournament.
Right.
if you had the 101, how safe are you playing it? So like that's fairly aggressive build at the end, throwing in Tanner Hudson in there. Jake Browning actually projects fairly well for the team totals at like a 23, so everyone likes Jake Browning. But I feel like if I was at the 101, I would be taking just like the best projections and let everyone else Galaxy Brain try to beat me just because I thought CMC is like an immediate like 3-4 point advantage.
The thing is because the Tanner Hudson was the 72nd pick, last tight end. You look, David Njoku, Kate Otten, Brevin Jordan were off the board. I don't know if there's a tight end who even projects that better. And at that point, you do just break the tie.
For sure.
Like if Browning's the optimal quarterback, he might be taking Tanner Hudson along.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very sharp way to play it. The reliancy on Jake Browning to two pass catchers and one of them not being Jamar Chase is an alpha play.
It really was.
Like, that is an absolute,
Did you guys, because one of the big things this week, everyone's talking about it's a gross slate. I didn't really notice any specific game environments getting steamed necessarily.
No, I thought that there was a chance that the Ravens-Rams game was going to get steamed, but I think the team total for the Rams is still at like 16, which is like Bryce Young level team totals, but nothing really. All I know is the gap was like 49ers were projected for 30 points. Then the Chiefs were second at like 24 3/4 points, and then everybody else was after that. So really, it was just, to me, it was like, all right, where are the 49ers guys going to go? Because those guys have like the easiest path to breaking the slate.
I think the reflection of that game getting steamed was Keaton Mitchell. Because we talked about him as like on Friday night, we were like, hey, maybe it's a dart throw, scroll the F down, whatever. And then he ends up going in 2 drafts. And I guess that's just people warming up to game environment. We did a rivals thing yesterday, like heads up, him versus Puka Nacua. We're like, are you kidding? They're valued on the same level here. But the field last night thought the same.
Well, and I will say that's actually a perfect illustration. It's like still give me Puka over Keaton in a one-on-one rivals. Like give me that median projection. If you're trying to win $200,000, I do think getting access to Keaton Mitchell's big playability on the good side of a matchup, like his ceiling is crazy, but you don't need a ceiling in a rivals pick.
Right. Yeah. I feel bad for our boy Nez. I just got to say it because he did kind of like a hybrid of what he alluded to all week long, where he was going to push up some quarterback floor. He was going to go whatever. He didn't get a spot where Josh Allen could come. He got the spot where Justin Fields would come. He gets a nice game environment stack, and then he goes not rogue, but he calls his shot on a couple guys, and Keaton Mitchell was one of them. The back stack with Komet was one, and pushing up James Cook was one to tap into that game environment in contrarian fashion. And he ends up with a lineup that has 3 pieces duped from the exact same, from the other side right there, Keaton Mitchell, Cole Kmet, and Justin Fields. So I felt bad because he executed a different plan than he originally kind of had laid out for us. I thought it was a sharp way of attacking it, and unfortunately it has overlap with someone else, but it's still panned out.
On the other hand, though, he did take a player in the last round that was not selected anywhere else in Jacoby Myers. We've seen some games where Jacoby outproduces Devontae. If people are playing that game heavy and you get the Jacoby game and you're the only one that has it, that can definitely make you unique.
I'm just hoping, in my completely unbiased professional opinion, that Jacoby Myers has a career day today.
Our guy, Sacrilegious, he was very bummed to get the second slot. He said it was his least favorite slot on the board, kind of put you in that. If you're doing a VR, you're like, I don't mind taking Kelsey or an elite quarterback. But in this, it really makes you kind of decide who is your favorite player on the slate other than CMC. For him, it was Keenan Allen. He does grab George Kittle in the late second, comes back, hits his guy Lamar Jackson, who helped him qualify for the Dawg Bowl. That was a Lamar Andrews stack. He then swaps out Andrews this time for Zay Flowers in the 4th, grabs Breece Hall in the 5th, and then Chris Godwin, another guy we were talking a lot about.
Let's
go. Squeakiest wheel around.
The life wheel.
That was another one. So we were building some pick'ems and rivals the other day, and we were shocked that and we'll have to check if it's still up there. You guys can go check too. Chris Godwin versus Mike Evans receptions, and Chris Godwin was only getting spotted half a reception.
And I mean, think about the ADP difference between those two players. If we think about the talent difference coming into the season, it's not nearly as stark as we view it now at this current moment. But, Evans is going in every single draft, and he's going in the second round. Well, you want direct leverage off that from someone who projects almost as close and went drafted in one draft and went at the 7th
Yeah, that's one of my
round
favorite,
pick.
probably one off of all of them was the Chris Godwin stuff. It's a good matchup. That game indoors as well, and with other games with weather and stuff like that, that was a really good play. I was curious if like the Jonathan Mingo teams, now you drafted 2 of them, would they have drafted them knowing that somebody else had already drafted them? Right. That's like the very tough part, but also one of the advantages of having multiple seats.
One of the players, speaking of that Panthers game, that to me, signaled like, hey, we're not messing around anymore, was the ADP of Chuba Hubbard, who went in the 4th round in multiple of these drafts. And I did some goal line stands this week where he could win undrafted. And that's the perfect case of like, hey, bad team, negative game script, maybe a timeshare, but then you're looking at the projections, seeing his kind of touch slow last week, and it's like, I'm probably banking 15, 16 touches here at worst.
Yeah, I agree.
The shout out to everyone in the chat. They're all pointing out Josh Norris in the background. Josh, you're getting a lot of love. They're catching you lurking, munching. Do you want to come say hi to the people?
Later.
He's shy. He's being shy. Did you guys have any favorite teams? Like if you were to handicap a team that you thought really separated, or was everyone just kind of pretty even?
I think like the on paper projection-based favorite right now would be Crutch's 2nd team, where Kittle fell to the 3rd round. I think if you just, if we built out a projection model or whatever, ran Sims on that sort of thing, I think he probably would be in the catbird seat right now. Do I think it's the best team? I'm not sure, but I think the models would suggest that would be the front runner right now.
Yeah, I thought the whole slate was pretty flat aside from CMC, so I think like all the projections would be fairly close. I thought there was a couple of the Herbert teams that I thought looked pretty solid. I think that was like my favorite sneaky game was the Broncos Chargers games, but I would probably say it was one of the CMC teams. I thought the Crutches team was good. I thought the Sacrilegious team that you just ran through also is really good with Lamar. I think that there's a chance that Lamar can bounce back. That team total is still really high. Like for example, like Lamar Fields, like fairly similar like quarterbacks. Fields is projected for like the Bears projected like 4 fewer points than Lamar, but Fields was going ahead of Lamar just because we haven't seen Lamar do that yet. But obviously we've seen Lamar completely go nuts a couple times already this year, and then obviously in previous years.
And it's wild that the weather concerns look more pressing in the Chicago game. And we know how sloppy that field can get with bad weather and stuff like that, comparative to the Baltimore game too.
Yeah, and the chat likes G's team out of the one. He started Christian McCaffrey, grabbed Brock Purdy, Sam Laporta, then went Chuba, Puka, and Josh Downs there. I thought Josh Downs was a really nice late pick this week.
Yep, get some leverage off of Pittman potentially, and then
the cover boy.
Yeah.
I mean, Zach Moss was kind of talk of the town last night, where Chad took him at like 5, 6, 7, something like that in one of the drafts there. Then he went at the turn on the other side. His ADP all week was in like the mid-20s, but every single one of these drafts he did not last to then. He was a projection darling. Well, what's direct leverage off that? We'll take the undrafted pass catcher with your very last pick.
Yeah, there's a couple of rookies that I thought got pushed up the board, just hoping that by the end of the season, these guys start taking off. Like the JSN pick, the Downs pick, the Keaton Mitchell pick, where these guys like don't project that well based off what they've done already. But we've seen obviously like Amon Ra and those type of guys very late in the season, obviously just completely start doubling their projection.
And isn't that the age-old dynamic? No matter when you're drafting, it's like, are you going to draft what you've already seen that you can bank on, or are you going to try to be early to it?
Yep.
Like, could JSN be a 3rd-round pick in these in a week or two? And you're saying, I want to get him in the 6th right now. Yeah. But that goes back to your risk tolerance, right? Because you could take a Chris Godwin. Like, we know who Chris Godwin is. We kind of know what his role is. And he probably has less volatility than someone like JSN. And so that's how are you going to approach this contest? I think it's fascinating. We saw drafters approach it both ways.
Right?
Yeah, I thought the Seahawks were a very hard team to grasp because it doesn't seem like Geno is going to play now. Going into the night, it seemed like he was still probably not going to play, but now, like on the morning, it definitely seems like he's not going to play. And obviously that impacts the Lockett, DK Metcalf, both Kenneth Walker and Charbonnet were on the injury report. And obviously that's a game environment that you want to have run-back options on because of the 49ers. But it was very hard to actually get a grasp on like what the quarterback play is going to be. And that team total has completely cratered now. That's going to be Drew Lock, it seems like.
Which is very interesting for Crashridge's team because Crashridge did what he always does, where he punts the onesies positions, he goes strong 4 flex plays, he gets a fall in DK Metcalf, and then he goes Isaiah Likely at tight end, so he boxes himself out of a stacking partner, and then instead takes Geno to stack with DK in the last round. Only problem being he has no swap options because there's only 3 games in the late window. Russ went after that. So he's looking at a Drew Lock team. Unless we get a rule out of Geno pre-kick early window, then he could go like super leverage on like naked Trevor Lawrence because Trevor Lawrence news didn't break until after the drafts last night. So there might be some leverage for him to just do that route.
Yeah, it's really hard to grasp there. Do we have an update on Trevor? It seems like Trevor Lawrence is going to play.
Yeah.
Do we know like the team totals? It was like at 14 earlier in the week. I'm not sure if like it's now getting up to like close to 18 or something like that because there's a couple teams
17 right now.
Still at 17. Yeah, because I think there's a couple teams that had like ETN, Calvin Ridley, like the last 2-ish picks, just hoping that Trevor Lawrence would play and just boost that team. Just in general.
The ETN pick was really interesting because, like, 3 weeks ago in a contest like this, he'd probably go in the first 2 rounds, right? Now with the uncertainty, both in terms of matchup and Trevor Lawrence, he falls to 70th in one of the drafts. He goes behind Deonta Foreman in the last round of one of these drafts. He still had the Q tag last night. So, I mean, just in terms of like talent and opportunity return on draft pick, that's very similar to the Chris Godwin one in my mind, except for we've seen it this year.
I'm glad you mentioned Foreman because one of the questions you had been asking yesterday is who is the thinnest or grossest pick we'll see in the 6th round. Like going through all these, I would say it's maybe a tie between a Jonathan Mingo or Deontay Foreman.
Yeah. Josh was loving the Mingo stuff.
That's how I got Josh to participate.
To wake up.
Just mentioned Jonathan Mingo. The Deontay Foreman one specifically, I think takes a pretty big leap of faith. We saw Deontay Foreman punch people tickets to this tournament, but now he's kind of mired in a 3-way timeshare.
Is there a chance that Deonta Foreman would be like a healthy scratch just because we haven't seen Khalil and Roshan and Deonta Foreman all healthy together for a little bit, and Deonta was a healthy scratch earlier, and if that's the case, then he's able to swap that pick out. But if he is active, then maybe that means that he's a starter again. So I'm not sure if there was a really big galaxy brain on that one, or if it was just I've seen Deonta Foreman pop off randomly and go Bears.
Yeah. Well, what a wild juxtaposition, though, that the guy could get 15-plus carries this week and be leverage off the Justin Fields and DJ Moore stuff early, or he could be healthy and active.
One of the dynamics that was so fun, obviously you guys in the chat recognize a lot of the usernames, you knew a lot of people drafting, but we met a lot of these guys who fired a single bullet. I was talking to this kid in the 3rd draft, username DPY002, college kid at Auburn, here with his girlfriend. His buddy got him on Underdog to do some pick'ems, does 1 draft drunk at night, and then his buddy's like telling him, wait, did you say you drafted him on Raw? He's doing pretty good. Checks the team, single bullet, punches his ticket. Then I'm asking him, I was like, oh, so were you really sweating this, planning your strategy? He's like, nah, man. So here's his team, Deebo Samuel, Sam Laporta, Justin Herbert, Javonte Williams, Kenneth Walker, and, guess it, Josh, Jonathan Mingo.
Wow.
So, but he was like, a lot of those guys feeling nervous. He was throwing back drinks, having the time of his life.
Yeah.
It was just a free roll in his mind.
Wow, I'm sure the chat's loving that. One guy comes in there, you guys are sweating out every single week, and one guy hops in there, but that's what makes it fun.
Yeah, putting 30 bullets a week in here, streaming every draft, and this guy just shows up drunk better than us,
And then I would say there was 4 or 5 other finalists with similar stories, and we got to do some interviews last night. You guys will get to see it in the video that comes out later. Or some really
The other one that I've hit on was the guy who was watching the Cameron and Mays show. Did a deposit bonus via them, sign up code, gets in here, does 1 week 1 $10 draft, wins a seed, and then just waits to do his next draft this week.
Literally 2 drafts. That's all I need.
That's all I need, man. 2 bullets. And he takes this down. One of the most legendary stories all time.
I believe he was the Deonta Foreman
Tim.
Okay.
Oh, there you go.
Yep, Baby J, Kamara, Purdy, Nico, Cooper Kupp, Evan Ingram, and Deontay Foreman.
Like that's rock solid. Like get the job done.
Yeah. So it was just seeing the diversity of everyone there, guys who literally built their own projections for this contest versus people just showed up, throw some cocktails, and
So
all just
Laura's
open
mom?
hand. Yes.
Yeah.
Plus one
Yeah,
mom.
the +1 was an interesting dynamic. It was
Yeah.
a couple people bringing their best friends, the mom factor. Obviously, we have the girlfriends and wives. We had some
Yeah.
solo missions.
Yep.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah. Any other takeaways from last night? I mean, just overall the experience in there, super fun.
Yeah.
Just a great crew of people. Everything went smooth. People had some questions about the drafts if it was different. It was like a normal draft, 30-second clock. They were all kind of in a little, circle drafting with their laptops and phones. Did you guys think that was, some people had the laptop, some people on the phone just drafted for 200,000?
I was waiting for the person who came out with just like sheets of paper and a highlighter, and he
Old
was
school.
just crossing them off as he went. Then picked up his phone to do one pick, put it back down, and kept going. Like that would have been an absolute alpha meta to go that way. But no, man, everything last night just top notch, right? I mean, at this point, it's kind of evergreen with everything we do with Underdog. It's just like. Yeah, we had that idea of like some funny bits that we would interject during the draft and be like, hey, what'd you do with that pick? Like, why'd you pick so and so? It was way too intense with too much money on the line to do that sort of thing. So we did way more of the post interviews, and we'll do more of that stuff today.
Yeah, we had the music bumping the entire time. I'll tell you why. Some of our voices are gone, and then immediately, right when the drafts would start. We would cut the music, and then you could just feel the intensity goes way up. I was sweating the internet connection. Everybody else was sweating their picks, but you could see like the complete intense factor. And then once they started leaving, things got a little bit more back to normal. It was funny to see them like sweating out, complete silence across the entire bar.
And I think that's why there's so much potential for live event like this, because compared to other live events where you just make your lineup in your hotel room and then you come down and everyone's partying and it's done.
Yeah.
Whereas here you saw people saying, I'm not having my first drink until this draft is done. I've dialed in. I can't fully enjoy myself until all these picks are in.
Yeah.
Well, like our guy Dave had AirPods in, listening to classical
He was listening
music.
to Vivaldi. Dave's out here listening to Vivaldi. Drafting Kyrie Williams.
Massaging his mind as to how he gets double LA stacks.
Ned said he was listening to like underground like Detroit rappers. So we had like the complete opposite sides of the equation there.
Yeah, I did look over at Nez, and Nez had the head bob going there. He was feeling it. Yeah, everyone approaching it very, very differently there.
One thing that I really loved was the live reaction of, though the crowd wasn't like massive because you weren't allowed to watch other drafts until your draft was complete and whatnot, that there was still like 50 some odd people in the room. And when someone made a pick that was like contrarian in nature, like Zach Moss at live, like like that live audience dynamic was really cool. Or like when the Mingos went and you could just hear Norris in the back corner, Mingos, like beautiful.
For the record, I would not have drafted Jonathan.
Yeah,
It's just for the bet.
just for the bit.
There is some news, by the way.
What's that?
Have you seen the Austin Eckler news?
No, what is it?
Ian Rappaport. Austin Eckler are expected to split carries with Joshua Kelly and Isaiah Spiller in Week 14. Chargers will ride the hot hand at running back.
Wow.
All right.
And he was a projection darling that was low in ADP for us. He was in like the mid 30s there. But then some of the models he pushed up into the third round in I think all three of these drafts. Yeah.
Well, what's so interesting to me is still, I wonder if people overreact to that, in that the Austin Eckler thesis is he catches a bunch of balls and gets goal line work, right? Like if he still has that, he's a good play.
Yeah.
But if he's losing goal line work to like
Yeah,
Joshua Kelly, then it's over.
Yeah,
It's over.
Yeah, I don't think Josh Kelly's going to steal his passing work at all. But that's also one of the. Yeah, I don't think either of those guys would. But Eckler's also just not catching as many passes as he had. Period.
We also have some CEH news.
Okay. Yes. We have our own breaking
Ian
news
Rappaport,
post.
Clyde Edwards-Helaire will start. Double split carries with Joe McKinnon in Week 14. So,
Chalk.
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
No news. That's news.
That makes Crutch's last round pick seem really nice too, because you got McKinnon leverage, you got CEH went in 2 drafts, McKinnon went in none, and then now he's got stacked McKinnon with that last pick.
Yeah, and I do think just correlation-wise, McKinnon fits with Mahomes so much better. Like if CH is stealing the touchdowns, I understand he'd be happy to take all the Chiefs' touchdowns, but if you could get the McKinnon, screen pass touchdown that we've seen him have in the red zone. I mean, that's a cheat code.
Yeah.
I'm glad you mentioned the Zach Moss at 6. That was our guy, Chad. His username, Lee121503. Badge Bros does a lot of great data on this. Zach Moss was a guy we were talking about all week. Like, he projects as a top 5, top 6 play overall, full stop. And yet his ADP was anchored at 22, 23. He kind of ended up getting in the middle of that in most of these drafts. But then Lee takes him here 6th overall.
When you guys are doing just regular BRs, like not in this environment, are people more likely to try to play the ADP game and actually try to draft Zach Moss closer to the ADP versus in this one where people basically were mostly ignoring it? Like,
I think it's room dependent. So I think in a vacuum, people play chicken with one another to be like, I know that you know that we both know what the projection on
Right.
Zach Moss is.
we're trying to get in good.
But I'm gonna get my money in good and try and push him to 17 instead of 22 or whatever, and try and get that GM style lineup where I go Justin Jefferson, Keenan Allen, and then 3rd round Zach Moss instead of going Zach Moss and building it the other way.
And you know what's so, thinking about the players this year on Underdog who have actually gotten steamed up, I'm thinking about the Raheem Mostert versus the Panthers week. It was Kenneth Walker versus the Cardinals week. And
Tony
it's
redacted every day.
but when there's momentum or news shifting, it's like Charbonnet is not going to have a role, and then everyone's looking at the matchup, and everyone gets excited. And the thing about Zach Moss, I think, because he flopped last week, even though he projects well, there's not an excitement or buzz around him where people are trying to trip over each other to grab him.
Yeah. Just a regression guy.
But yeah, I got in the BRs this week, I'd have to pull it up. I think I have 60% Zach Moss, and to where I've now stopped taking him at ADP 22, and then I'm still in one of these drafts. I got him at 30
Yeah.
yesterday. I'm okay. Yes, I'm taking Zach Moss at 50.
I think that is one of the big things for the BR is it better to get 25% of Zach Moss at ADP where you're getting him really good, or is it better to have 50% Zach Moss but you're getting him a round earlier? What of those two portfolios is actually playing the game better? So
And because it's so different from Best Ball Mania, where if you did that all the time, Best Ball Mania, that's a long-term losing strategy.
Yeah.
But when you just need the raw points, the opportunity cost of Zach Moss in the 3rd of a BR versus the 4th is just completely negligible.
And I think it's harder in Best Ball Mania where we have months and months of ADP working together. It's hard to find all of a sudden a guy that's projected 4 rounds different. In this thing, you fire up the ADP, something can change in the middle of the week, and all of a sudden there's a anchoring effect that's hard to adjust these guys to the right spot on a short notice.
Appreciate you guys hanging out in the chat here. Some other comment. People love the chairs. They love John's short shorts.
Yeah, right.
Hayden, let the
I'm
people
going straight into the pool. Yeah, that's what I'm doing.
Hayden, let the people know what your guys' schedule is for a stream here.
I think we're gonna go live on Underdog Fantasy Channel to do regular sit-start questions, and then we'll be we'll go back to the bar. We'll sweat it out with everybody for the last hour of the event, the witching hour. We are going to be just live sweating with the top teams up there, so we'll hear from all of us and Josh and everyone else that's just out there at the bar, and then we'll award the winners. We have some big ass checks to give out, and then after that, Josh and I will do live for our recap show. Though it's going to be pretty hard to keep track of these games with all the chaos.
Do you know? Is there going to be some kind of live leaderboard people can track today? Do we know about that?
I'm not sure. I haven't heard. I would hope that we would have that. But yeah.
And hopefully even too, maybe we can talk to some of the people there. We'll get some screenshots going in the leaderboard and get those circulated. And we'll be tweeting, sharing it out as well.
I think one of my favorite things, while you guys are doing that stream and stuff, in the intermittent hours, we're gonna be walking around and doing some interviews that we didn't get yesterday, and doing that sort of thing and talking through people's process. And I can't wait to go up to insert player name and be like, what do you need? And it's well, I need 7 points from Stephon Diggs, but I can't have 11 from Josh Allen. But then, maybe I need a Dalton Kincaid 4, but he can't really score a touchdown because that'll boost Josh Allen. And people just working through the mental gymnastics of how the hell do I actually win this thing right now?
Well, the other funny dynamic I was thinking about is how we're going to have some new friends formed, because say it's the Brock Purdy
Right.
CFC stack. It's like the two Brock Purdy CFC. It's you and me going to the top, buddy. Or the Jonathan Mingo guys holding hands, skipping around after a long TV.
I have a feeling the Mingo teams are going to be at the bottom.
Just chasing.
I feel that's where they were yesterday as well.
But that is another thing in the regular VRs. Like, let's say you have the Amon Ra team. Well, there are tons of other Amon Ra teams. If Amon Ra pops off today, it's just you and two buddies. Like, there is no other Amon Ra team. So if there is one guy to truly break the slate, like this time they're like actually breaking the slate, where you are one of 3 people that have a chance at winning it, versus on the regular VR, you're one of a couple hundred.
Yeah, one cool thing they had at the live event last night was the lineups of everyone who qualified and showing the scores, and it was fun to go look at those. And to your point, like I saw the Jamar Chase against the Cardinals number, right, like 47. And it's like if someone gets that score tomorrow, you're going to see the 3 Jamar Chase teams. Like I would bank in the top 5. Maybe someone like sneaks in, but those teams will just naturally bubble to the top in this small of a contest.
Yeah, that was another thing going through the 36 teams. There was one trend that I kind of was picking up on. Obviously, a lot of teams were well stacked and thought through, but you can, and especially with only 36 people, you could still take a 1, 2, 3 point game from your tight end spot. There's a couple teams that were like only getting 4 points from commit, at 1 point from George Kittle, and with this, with only 36 people, I do think that you can still survive if one of your 6 guys kind of takes a little bit of a dud, I think, at the tight end spot.
Yeah, I fully agree with that. The inverse narrative to that is if one tight end breaks the slate,
It's over.
It's over, right? You know, and like who has that ceiling? Maybe the first 3 or 4 off the board, and that's about it.
Yeah.
If you get like all of a sudden that vintage Kittle, 150 and 2, that's gonna be hard to make up.
All right, I am going to power this one down for the YouTube members. I'm going to go do my cram, so we'll talk through all the GPP plays, talk some lineups, all of that good stuff. We'll do our classic pick 'em build, maybe rip one more goal line stand draft as well. If you enjoyed reviewing these draft boards, kind of want to get in there, see what a team looks like. I know we still have some space in the goal line stand, so it's the exact same format that these guys drafted in last night. You can kind of build your own team to sweat along with them. Thanks again to Hayden, also our tech guys back here, Dean, Luke, helping us out, getting this set up. Apologies on the issue with the audio at the top, but we figured it out. Good luck in week 14. I know a lot of you guys sweating those best ball teams, trying to get as many teams in to the sprint. It's going to be a fun day. Appreciate you all. Yeah, follow us on Twitter. We'll keep you posted throughout the day. We'll catch you.